Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Psychic Zen. I'm here with the wonderful Nancy Barr. Everybody say hi, Nancy. Nancy, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
So, tonight our subject is about belief systems. I brought this subject to Nancy because I was listening to this audiobook. It's actually like a notes version of someone else's interpretation of the book, how to what to say when you talk to yourself. And I said there was a line in it where he says, you know, um, people who really prioritize personal and spiritual development believe that there is something that can be better. And for people who don't believe that something can get better or that conditions can improve, they don't even try. And I was like, wow, what a really impressive subject to, get deeper into, especially when it connects to so many things. So when I was speaking to Nancy about developing this topic for our podcast with you guys tonight, Nancy had asked me a question that I didn't prepare for. She goes, well, what do you think about belief systems? How do you think that, about belief systems working, or like, how do you think that you can navigate out of belief systems? And it brought me back to when I was her at first Nancy's student. And I said, I think open-mindedness to believe that something could be better. But what I also realize is that sometimes when we feel like we're at rock bottom, we will reach for something to feel better. And then do we have to be at rock bottom before we reach for something to be better? Obviously not. But why do sometimes we need to get to rock bottom in order to start feeling better or start evaluating why we think and feel and say and do the things that we do? So I'm going to pass this over to Nancy. And Nancy, if you want to kick it off, I'll follow behind you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anyway, it is a good subject, and again, whatever we think, when we're down and out, or when we have an idea that we're getting hit, and this is not going right, or this is going well, or anything like that. Again, those are belief systems, and as deep as it is, and as bad as it can be, and as however we interpret it, and we go with it, and so on, it's just really to be meant to be an experience of learning, because it's in our belief system that this isn't right, or it's in our belief system that this isn't, there's no hope. It's in our belief system, I've done something wrong. It's in our belief system. And where did these belief systems come from? I mean, a lot of them, you might want to find out where they began. Could be an experience, could have been something we were taught when we were a child. It could be a lot of different things. It could be something we read. We could have been church. It could have been, a boss and a working situation, and values, and figuring out what this is and that is, and so on. But it doesn't matter where it came from. The belief system is just that. It's a belief system that we entertain. We either buy into it or we buy out of it.
That's right.
It's one or the other. I mean, we can, or it's something we can put on the back burner and just, think about, or just have it on the back burner, trying to figure it out, and so on. But belief systems about the outside. It's not about inside. It's about the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Belief systems are thinking, and so on, and learned thinking many times, because we learn either through experience, or we were taught, or whatever the case might be. But nevertheless, it's our interpretation of something, or an item, or situation, or whatever the case might be. It's our interpretation of what that is. And the whole purpose of a belief system is to experience different experiences with that, and then come to the conclusion. But we need to understand, I think very strongly, we need to understand that belief and knowing are two different things.
That's right. Definitely.
And when know comes from within your heart chakra, know comes from within, And the belief systems are cerebral. They're either something we learned and we made an opinion about it. We were told this is right. And again, we've mentioned this. I've mentioned this before. If we get into right or wrong and good and bad, you're going to be in belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
One way or another, it is going to drop into a belief system. And so we either agree or disagree. People disagree or we agree. Others agree or disagree with us. But these are all ideas. They are all experiences or beliefs and experiences that we had, and they can be as good or bad as we interpret them to be.
There is a very specific moment when you and I were learning about self-love, or I was learning about self-love from you, better said, where you said, "Who told you this?" And it stunned me. When I was like, where did I get that from? And I had to think about it. And, to dovetail into what you're saying, sometimes belief systems are something that we create. So sometimes, also, let me kind of revise that. I feel like belief system sounds like a big word, almost outside of ourselves, but really it's just, what do we believe? What do we believe about something? And a really good question to start getting into self-awareness is, where did I get that from? Who told me that I was, or what did I start? Where was I when I believed this about myself? And then how do we walk ourselves into a place of truth? You can meditate, you can get into the heart chakra. That's the simple way. But for me, it was a little bit more of a cerebral process until I was ready to have a more emotional process with it. And that actually brings me up to a series of questions that's asked by one of the viewers that's here with us tonight. So the question is, the cerebral part of it is, our individual feels stuck on forgiving themselves and letting things go, and that they're trying to learn how to love themselves, but they're finding it difficult. And although they feel more encouraged through watching our podcasts, they are still feeling kind of like bogged down by thoughts or beliefs that they have about not being very lovable, or finding it hard to see themselves in a different light. So what they'd like to go over is, how do I forgive myself? And it feels like to them that they have felt this way about themselves since being a child, and that these belief systems were either externally put into them or something internally developed. And they're wondering, how do I break through this? I've been thinking this way, believing this stuff for years. Like it feels like it's part of me, even though only now I'm starting to realize it's not. So how do I make this separation and get into my truth?
Well, we have to, in order to answer that question, from my perspective, we have to understand that we are not outside of the source. We're not outside of God. We're not outside. We're part of God. We're not outside of it. And that's not what we're taught here. We're taught that there's evil and there's this and there's all these different aspects of ourselves, and right and wrong, good and bad, and this is right. But it's all perspective. It's all what people think. It's going to be a paradigm, what person thinks. You might have one person thinking this way and another person. You can even have division in parents having different ways to parent and so on. So a lot of this does come from childhood. A lot of it comes throughout our different experiences, but probably we came in with an agenda. Mm-hmm. And we came in with a theme. And so we might call these themes past lives. And it's going to affect what we're here to pay attention to now, because we're trying to clean up things. But the paradigms of the past life, it's not a past life. The past lives are running right now. I mean, it's the now. Everything is in the now, the now, the now, the now. And today is a now, tomorrow's a now, everything is a now. So, but what I mean by that is that there are time zones. There are different experiences that we had in a different situation, in a different time frame, different timeline. And those timelines, again, they were things that we experienced. We came in to experience. We came in to find out. We came in to learn. We came in to make mistakes. And if I made a mistake, then that's the way I've learned. That's the way you learned in the Pisces age. is through watching and understanding. Again, we understood the Christ energy before we got here, if you have an M on your hand. And what we didn't understand was the negative. We did not understand dark. We did not understand separation. So we agreed to come in and go through separation, to go through all these different experiences, these different ideas, in order to understand why is one of the universal laws what it is. Why is love the only answer? Why is, why is separation such a negative thing to go through? Because it separates us, and then we go into fear, and then when we go to, we think we go into hatred, but all hatred is fear, and then we go into fear, and then we go into misunderstanding, and then we go into doubt, and we go into conscious, trying to figure out the awareness. But eventually, everyone's going to get to the place wherever they need to go to. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of how do I do that, and it's also a matter of how much more do I want to suffer? How much more do I need to know? The person who's asking that incredible question is tired of going through this. I would guess. I mean, that's what I would think, and what I feel with this person. The idea is not to suffer anymore. The idea is, how do I love myself? It's a choice. It's a decision you make that you are part of God. We are all part of God. We're not separate, that God is up in the sky and so on. God is within us. It's right inside of us. Source, whatever you want to call it, the high being, the creator, anything you want to call it, we're part of it. And because we're a part of it, you can never separate from God. Eventually, I mean, here it looks like it acts like it, beliefs are, this is evil, this is bad, this is whatever it might be to people. But you can never, your actions, your behavior can be not in alignment, but you're never going to, you're still breathing. You still have source within the breath. You're never going to separate from the creator or God, because we are all one. And there's no way to do that. But while we're here, we practice separation. We practice finding out. We practice not liking ourselves. We practice. And the reason she's asking, I'm assuming it's a she, but if it's not, that person is asking the question because she knows there's something wrong with that. She knows that that's not the real truth. And no matter who or what indicated that, and matter what why she came in, or he came in to acknowledge that theme. How do I learn to love myself? And then part of that theme is I have expectations, or people have expectations of me. And when these expectations don't meet up to certain standards, and something's wrong with me, and then we have unhappy people being unhappy and being mean and unhappy to someone else. And then we believe in it, we take it in, and we find out that we're not popular. We find out there's something wrong, and no matter what I did, I couldn't please my parent. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. It's all an illusion. None of it is real. It's not anything that's going to be held against anybody. And it's just a matter of, do you want to suffer or don't you? And if you don't, then the belief systems are going to be cumbersome. Even if let's say I think I can do no wrong, and I don't take responsibility for anything I do. I can do anything I want to do, and I can be any way I want to be. And it's always someone else's fault. But that doesn't make it true. And that certainly doesn't make it real, because we get everything we think. Sooner or later, we're going to get everything we think. So the lesson's going to come around that it's all about universal law. It's all about learning love. It's all about understanding that we are all one. We're not separated. That I'm not separated from my source. I'm not separated from other people's source. I'm not separated from other people. That's all an illusion. And now we're coming to a time period where this is going to be very, very important for everyone to understand, is that we're all part of source. It's right inside of us. And if I don't like myself, then go inside. There's many things you can do. Go inside, and like you said, you can find out, where did that come from? I mean, where did that start? But it could even started in another time zone. It could have started in another parallel universe. You know, it could have started somewhere. It doesn't really matter where it started. I mean, it does and doesn't. But what the point is, I have to realize that that's not the truth.
Right.
And I am part of Source, and I am part of love, and I have a choice to make. I can either be separated and go through all this stuff and go through all this horrible things that are going on and be unhappy and be separated and feel bad and blame myself for everything and buy into everybody else's version of me. And, you know, it's who they think I am, who I think I am, and who I really am. So who am I?
Right.
And the more you know who you are, the more you understand that breath of yours is spirit. And it's not going to choose it's not going to choose being against anyone. It can only be love. God can only be love. It is only love. And so people, you know, we've had punishing gods. We've had all kinds of different versions of gods. Well, man made that. But God is love and peace and harmony and well-being, and it is inside of everyone, and it doesn't give up on anyone. And when we do take our last breath, we go straight into a higher level, unlike what most people think. And if I go anywhere else but in a higher level, it's because that is what I thought was real and true. And so it's going to take me what I think for a little bit, not for long.
So I feel like there's pieces that I have from what you said, and then there's some other questions that are here. So I just want to mention these few things. One is, so actually, Denise's said, God and us are one. So one thing that I'd like to address with this, that yes, the statement is true, but it jogged my memory for something, is that sometimes we know something in the mind, and we understand this is the information and the information is true, but it's different to really feel that, to not just know in your mind that God and us are one, or whatever the belief system is, but to really feel in oneness with God. And Nancy, before I knew what bliss was, and she described it to me through her experience, when I started to get into a place through the practice that allowed me to get into bliss in these higher realms, I was crying all the time because I go, oh my God, wow. And I call Nancy, because I call Nancy for every achievement that I make. And I go, Nancy, this is amazing. I really feel this. And it's so beautiful. And it was always in my, it was a feeling. So sometimes, and I've been a student with Nancy, like I've said, for 13 years now. So there's so many things that she's taught me that I worked on for a while. Here's something she taught me in the beginning, and 5 years later, that's when it really hits, because it's one thing to know it in your mind, and it's another thing to know it in your heart, to come back and make that connection in the heart between you and the truth, or you and source. And then it now it has meaning, and it just offers you so much more. And until we get to that point, the place in us that's unresolved acts as a projection. We put it on somebody else, or we overlay it onto situations and cause ourselves to suffer sometimes. And one of the things you said, Nancy, two of the things: one, if you believe in something, that's what you're going to get. So the other day, talking between Nancy and I, is if you believe in suffering, you're going to get suffering. It really stuck in my mind. It's like, well, when you don't want to suffer, you'll stop imposing suffering onto situations, which was, I've learned this in so many different ways with Nancy, but the words hit me differently because I'm where I'm at internally. It's like, yeah, if I don't want to suffer, I do have to stop having these beliefs about whatever it is, fill in the blank. It could be different for everybody: money, relationships, people, an aspect of our lives, our health or well-being. I really do need to see it from a different perspective and get into the truth of it rather than my belief system about it. My belief system is created in the ego and will cause me to suffer. But when I get into the heart about it, I'll get into the truth about it. I'll be in bliss. I'll be out of suffering and I'll feel so much better. And when you are in alignment and oneness with what is true, there's a glow. There's a huge, amazing, in my experience, profound light that I feel inside and outside, where everything in the world is in harmony and it all makes sense. So addressing this person in their question, talking about self-forgiveness, if you say sorry, if somebody else wounded you and they said sorry and you were able to forgive them and you were able to let it go, then I feel like, can you say sorry to God, or can you say sorry to yourself, or sorry to the person, and then be willing to let it go? And Nancy, we talked about forgiveness a lot.
Well, I'm just going to stop you just for 1 second.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we can go around and around about the forgiveness thing, and but the point is, forgiveness is only necessary for the person who made the judgment.
Right.
Because I judged myself, or someone else judged me, or I judged a situation and someone else judged the situation, the forgiveness is just a way for the mind to accept that there's nothing wrong here. There's no really bad thing. Something either didn't work. And, if you don't have good and bad and right and wrong, if I look at it, it doesn't work. For me, that kind of separation and anger and fear and all that stuff doesn't feel good. So it doesn't work for me. And it takes practice. One of the things, that we did, one of the reasons why you caught the drift is because you came from it for the biggest reason. But in the interim, the one way to do it is it takes practice. All this stuff takes practice. It takes trying it. What does it feel like what would I feel like? What would if I really liked myself, what would that look like?
Right.
What would it look like? What would that feel like? What would that be? And then if it's something that needs to be, maybe I worry too much. Maybe I do this, maybe I do that, and so on. Well, worry is a wasted energy. Because it never has a solution attached to it. So the more I understand, and understanding and clarity comes in, and ask for clarity and understanding, because once you understand, just using worry as an example, worry never solves a problem. It only creates more problems. It keeps it going. I used to have people say to me, I love my family so much. I worry about them all the time. And there was a part of me sitting, I'm glad I'm not your family. You're programming what you don't want from me.
Right.
So, I had this happen this last week, and I'll be brief on it. One of my clients and persons I do work with, she's a nurse, and she's an NP, and she has people around her that are jealous or don't like the fact that she's been so successful. And so they found a loophole, but she was adamant she was going to get fired. She was absolutely adamant that these people didn't like her. She was absolutely adamant that the very worst was going to happen, and there was no solution to it. The manager had all the power. She was going to get reported, and she went through, 4 or 5 days like that, nonstop. Turns out that it all got worked out. I knew it would. I knew it would. But we can sit here and run our lives in these belief systems, and who's got power and who doesn't, and so on. Your power comes in power comes in universal law, being in alignment.
That is 1,000% true.
And once you have that power, and once you have, so what did she learn? It turned out that what she ended up doing was she had stayed too long where she was, and it wasn't a good situation. She stayed there because she wanted the benefits. Okay, that's understandable, but she stayed too long. So what happened now is she wanted the opportunity to resign. It got her out of a bad place. And I think who took her side were the doctors that know the kind of job she did. And they probably didn't want her to go through this, because someday they may not work there too, and they may want to hire her. So there's always a solution attached to every single one of these situations, always. And it'll usually be the opposite of, it'll be totally the opposite. If you're going to be on the God's, the spirit side of it, it's going to be the opposite of all that negativity in those belief systems.
Agreed. The only thing I was going to say in remainder to the forgiveness component is you saying about true forgiveness is letting it go. And when I was younger, when I didn't know that, I was always under the, I did forgive, I forgive. And it's like, well, if you're thinking about it, you're consumed by it, you're triggered by it, you still get emotional over it, you didn't forgive. And what a reality that was. And, you may be in the process of forgiving, but you have not forgiven, because to forgive is to really let go. And in my experiences with forgiveness, when I would make a heartfelt connection and say, I forgive myself for, there's a letting go that is attached. And when you let go, it does feel like a weight leaves you. And that's such a special feeling.
I think,
go ahead. Sorry.
What you have to understand too is if you recognize what the problem is, that someone did something to you,
mm-hmm.
then that means somewhere on some timeline you did the same thing. Otherwise, you would never recognize it and you wouldn't be getting it. It's still something to learn out of that. So forgiveness is like a way to get the mind to recognize that, it doesn't want the problem. It would rather forgive than carry on the negativity. It's a gift to God, because God, you're not sitting there separated and so on. It's way out of separation. But the truth of the matter is, somewhere, someplace, sometime, we were involved in something that we judged or were being judged for. And whatever happened to us, whatever came at us, I'm not saying we should sin and be penalized for it. I think it's just, maybe we were on the same side of it. Maybe it happened to us before. Maybe it's not something we did, but we came across it before. And we didn't forgive. It doesn't matter. What matters is love is the only answer.
Right.
And love is the only answer. Love is the only answer. Love is the only answer. And if people in this age of Aquarius can try to make the revenge and all this other stuff, and the lack of forgiveness and the anger and all this other stuff, they can try their best to make it work. It will not work. It will not bring anybody into peace. You cannot light a candle with a dead candle.
Right.
You cannot solve negativity with negativity in this Aquarian
age
time period. You can't. I mean, you can do it, but it won't work.
Right.
Well, so if you want peace and harmony, I think forgiveness is a great thing, because it shows that humbleness, that you're willing to understand where the person's coming from, and you'd rather have peace than the problem. You'd rather believe in the peace of it, the solution of it, and the resurrection of it than the problem. But it only comes about because there's judgment involved.
So in my understanding of it, when we feel like we are having trouble forgiving ourselves, it's either that we feel like we deserve to be punished, which it's not how we come in, but maybe we come in with that information from a previous lifetime, but somebody taught us that if you do this behavior, this is then what should happen to you. And that's externally imposed. And that's, in a way, how belief systems get going. That's one of the things that this gentleman said in the book, was that, when we are programmed by, he says, somebody else has a condition based on what they grew up in. You get born. Now these individuals are teaching you, but they're not just teaching you with their words or their actions. Their words and actions come with a mindset. And through being taught by them, you adopt not only their words and beliefs or their words and feelings, you adopt the mindset. And the mindset is then, it becomes a layer inside you. It's not who you really are. So when you recognize, or if something comes up that doesn't really work for you and it's causing you to be upset, it's recognizing that being upset is a choice and saying, I don't want to suffer anymore. No matter who started it, no matter how it happened, I just don't want to suffer anymore. And that's where I think the component of forgiveness also comes in too, where it's like, I don't want to hold you accountable. Maybe I did this in a past life. Maybe I was punished by somebody like this in a past life. Maybe it happened in this life. But the more I know that if I hold on to it, I'm going to attract it in more people. I'm going to attract it in lessons. I'm going to make myself suffer. And I just don't want to suffer. And sometimes the solutions that I experienced in my spiritual path where I just don't want to suffer. And that's enough of a reason for me to change my behavior or believe in something better or to reach out and want something better. And that, you know, Nancy would say to me over and over again, Teresa, love is the only answer. Teresa, love is the only thing that's real. So when I would put the discipline, practice, and effort into whatever I was working on, struggling with, I'd go, well, I know the answer. I know the answer is love is the only thing that's real. So, well, one of my options, you know, what are my options? One of my options is to pray and ask for guidance through the situation. One of my options is to pray and ask that the situation be remedied for me. But if I'm going to chew on it cerebrally myself, which is like the least effective way, but if I am going to do it and have that aha moment for myself, I would say, well, love is the only thing that's real. So what am I holding on to? Love is the only thing that's real. So why do I feel the need to hold on to it to begin with? I would search myself for the belief system that was blocking me from allowing myself to move past it. Now I don't even really do the chewing on so much anymore because it doesn't really work. As soon as I recognize that something's blocking me, I know that it's ego, and that's enough for me. It's enough to say, you know, I don't want to suffer, and it doesn't matter where it began. And the compassion in me recognizes the compassion in you, and that's all I really need. I'm forgiven, you're forgiven, and God loves us both, and that gives us space to love each other because love is the only thing that's real. It was the repetition of love is the only thing that's real that allowed those blinders to continuously come off. And once you feel source inside, once you know that source is real, not in your mind as a thought, but as a feeling, as a embodiment, you're so much more comfortable trusting and leaning into that source is going to make a way for you, that the high self is going to assist you, and that there is solutions in it, and you're being more comfortable to rely on it to provide you the solution.
Teresa, we're talking about when you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a choice, but then there have been, through time periods and a lot of things, there's been kings, queens, presidents, vice presidents, there's been, parents, parental, there's been bosses, employees and bosses and so on and so forth and so on. So, they all had belief systems. And the more elite they were, the more power they had behind. The more money someone has, the more power they have. So when it's a choice that I just get to change my behavior, I don't want to suffer anymore, which is very important for us. But when you're in a situation, just like she had a manager over her that was jealous, actually it was a racial thing, was jealous. She had, they were threats that they were going to report her to the board. Now, this is a woman who saves people's lives each and every day. And this was just because they had an issue with her because of her coming here from another country and being part of a medical thing. Well, okay, that's okay. The manager had the right to think what they did, her belief systems. And she and the person who was her victim did not have a choice that it happened. So it was an accident. I mean, it was something very minor, and they used it to give her a really rough time. Her choice was that God was going to bring this and change the situation for her no matter what. And that the beings, the presidents and the kings and the queens and the wealthy and this and that, and there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. It's nothing wrong with being a king and queen or a president or not president. But when someone abuses their privilege, but they're still going to have, all we have to do is listen to the politics. There's very strong ideas and belief systems going on. Then there's all the people that follow them that have their own belief systems. And then there's an understanding and there's not, and so on. So where do we, it's like we can be put in a place where sort of like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to be voted president here. And we don't know in Israel how that's all going to get solved. We don't know how these belief systems, that revenge and this and that and everything that took place and the wars and all the stuff. And we don't know. There are people that don't know how their houses are going to be rebuilt when the whole town got wiped out.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff happening that it's going to take trust and faith and practice, because that there is it's going to be two choices. Either we believe we're on our own and we're going to have to deal with all the negative stuff without any help. It's going to be on us to figure it out. Or we're going to, like you said, you're going to go to a higher place, a higher part of you, the source, and have faith and trust that there's a solution for every problem. Every single thing that happens that's negative, there's another side in this Aquarian age. There's another side to it that is the solution, or many solutions. It has unlimited opportunities to help, which is what happened with this situation that I just described. But at the time, it seemed so real.
Yeah.
I am fired. Now, nothing had been done yet when that happened. But I know I'm going to be fired.
Right.
Well,
isn't that fear?
Wait a minute. If you know you're going to be fired, obviously you were wrong, because she wasn't.
Right. But is that fear? Like, it's a fear she doesn't want to be fired?
Fear. Yeah. And then it's misunderstanding, it's doubt, and so forth. I'm here. And we're taught that there can only be a God, or there can only be someone else, or someone higher than ourselves, or someone, more wealthy, or someone that's this or that. And there's nothing wrong with the wealth or the religion or any of this. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is how I feel about myself in that circumstance.
Right.
That I have God inside of me, and that's all that every single person has the source inside of them to take care of any situation that can happen on this planet, and they don't even know it.
That's right.
Or they don't recognize it.
One of the most
that's where it's got to change. Is I've got to understand that there is some kind of source that has got my well-being, and it breathes me every day. And when it doesn't, I won't be here. But it breathes for me every single day. My breath comes in at birth, and my breath goes out in transition. And there is going to be a way to solve these awful things that take place. There's going to be a way to solve it if I go to the higher level. If I go to the earth and I go to the third dimension and the lower levels, then you're going to be vulnerable to whatever that means.
Right. What I was going to say, one of the things most important that I learned from you in regards to self-love is that everything is attracted to the relationship we have with ourselves. And when I first met you, I thought I loved myself, but what I didn't realize in all the ways that I didn't, and how self-love became a lesson and eventually a gift. It was so much bigger and deeper and broader than I really imagined, until I got to this very well-practiced place of, I love, I am God, God is me, I am loving the God within me. But, one of the things that you taught me is like, Teresa, you have homework, look in the mirror twice a day and say something nice to yourself. And it was so transformational. So I went from being able to look at you, to, looking in the mirror and being like, you have a really pretty, you're a beautiful person. You have a nice smile. You have nice teeth. You have nice eyes. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened. But what I was surprised by was that when I let it happen, how fast it happened. And then how my life dramatically changed once I dramatically was willing to change my relationship to myself. Why don't I love myself? Where did that belief come from? And then, well, what do I need in order to love myself? Why did I previously see myself as unlovable? And why now can I see myself as lovable? And now I go out like the biggest ray of sunshine ever. I'm loving everybody and everyone's loving me. And it's a one big love fest. And it's a really, really great time. But it's such a night and day experience. So I feel like learning how to love yourself is, do we all need to maybe hold ourselves to some kind of like criteria of value? Yes, like meaning that if I lied to somebody, I would feel very bad about that. I wouldn't like it. I prefer to be an honest person, and in being an honest person, I feel like that gives me greater meaning in life. But it's loving myself whether I was truthful or not. That it's like, Nancy, what I'm trying to say? It's like God doesn't need you to be something to be lovable. You just need to be yourself, and your real self is that extension of God, no matter what choice you make, whatever you do.
Well, I think our behavior is a result of our belief systems. I believe someone's coming after me, so I have to, I believe that I don't have the power, so I'm going to lie. I believe. Versus, I think you have to separate behavior from the person.
Right.
The person is a good person, and they're learning. They're a student. They're here on Earth. We're here trying to figure it out. We're here trying to get stronger in it. And if it's easier if you can remember to keep it to the behavior rather than this is who the person is.
Right. Including yourself.
So, what?
I said including yourself.
Right. Well, of course, it's going to be everything is yourself. Everything you did to someone else, you've done, you're doing it to yourself, or you've done it to yourself.
Right.
That person, again, if they've done something to you, it's because you're recognizing something that you've done. Mm-hmm. Everything is about the person. This is all about whoever it is. We're all that person. We're all one.
Right.
So, the changing the behavior, understanding behavior is belief systems, and understanding that they don't always work out. They're not necessarily true. They're just a perspective that I have from my own experience, or from something I was taught in, something
something you picked up along the way.
We have a lot of people who are experts in so many things, and they have, that's called ego.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a difference between knowing and understanding and having clarity. That is a whole different ballgame, because that's how we get to doing what we were talking about earlier about succeeding in this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes,
it's a lot more fun.
It's so much more fun.
As you pointed out so successfully.
It's, and the other thing too, when I cultivated self-love, I had an easier time being easy. And the more I understood the importance of being easy, and it lessened up on my rigidity, and it made me more compassionate with people overall. I actually got a spaceship tattooed to me as a reminder to understand that sometimes people are going to think different than you, be different than you. And my visual with it was like, what if we all came from different planets, different solar systems, different star planets?
And we did.
Exactly. Well, one culture differs from the other. I know. Like one culture differs from the other. What being in my planet, practicing whatever my cultures are, I could go to a whole different solar system and they can have an entire different practice. But before I showed up, they weren't wrong. So they don't need my judgment in their practice. We just practice different things. Can we respect each other? Can we love each other? Can we just hold space for each other to be who we are and understand that we're all works in progress? So that was my even reasoning behind getting the spaceship tattoo, was helping myself to cultivate compassion for myself and compassion for others, and come to a place of acceptance. And actually, astrology, when I was much younger, helped me to do that, because when I started studying astrology, later on, I drifted back from it because I understood that we were more than what our astrological signs are. But for a while, it helped me to navigate. Well, a Libra prefers this, and a Virgo prefers this, and an Aries prefers. No wonder they're acting differently. We all have different needs that make us feel secure, supported, loved. And this was very early on in my journey, before all the other pieces filled in. But it helped me to be more understanding and easier, because I'm strong-minded, and that strong-mindedness. Really? I know, no one noticed.
there's another aspect to this is people are taught that they're being egotistical if they are putting themselves first or love themselves and so on. They think it's the same thing as being ego oriented. Well, what makes the difference is ego oriented is a separation. And it's like I'm different than someone else. To love yourself and love everyone else is unity, which is source. So, we've been taught, people have been taught, well, you're just being egotistical because you're thinking of yourself and you're only doing this and that. Taking care of oneself is our responsibility.
Right.
Being kind to oneself is our responsibility. First, you've got to put the mask on yourself before you put it on in the airplane on someone else. So it's something, the more peaceful, loving, and caring, and the happier you are, and the more peaceful that you found the peace within you are, that it helps everybody. It's unity. Everyone, if I'm having a happy day and my energy is really in a good place, not only do I benefit from it, but people around me benefit from it. And if it were the opposite, it would not be the same.
I agree.
It's one of those things that we have to understand that loving ourselves is mandatory. Know thyself and to thyself be, Aristotle.
And
know yourself.
Know be yourself, true. To yourself, be true. I loved when you taught me that, because I was like, well, what is my truth? And it's like, well, you're only going to get in through the heart, so you can think as much as you want to, but eventually you're going to have to go into the heart. Enjoy your time. I have 2 questions for you, almost a third. So one of the comments is, I always felt like I didn't belong here. It's been hard for me to fit in. Now I just want to learn as I ascend. And I know sometimes, people don't feel like they're from here. And Nancy, well, that's what I was just going to say to you. We've had these conversations. How does somebody feel, how would you address that? I guess I'll keep it simple.
I think the whole idea is to find your path to be happy. You don't have to fit in. You don't have to be everybody's version. I mean, I will not probably ever be everyone's. I used to like to be peace at all costs. I learned that wasn't working. So I don't do that so much anymore. I don't do it. But, the point is I need to be happy. I don't have to be everyone's version of who they think I am. Now, I've had a lot of students in my day, and I'm sure some of them thought, one thing, or Nancy's this, Nancy's that, and so on. I am not anyone. My goal is to be connected to source and be whoever I am.
That's
and
right.
If somebody likes it, fine. I mean, my teacher, Premrat, he talks about this. He started when he was 4, and he had 2,000, 3,000 people in his audience at that time. He's been doing it 52 years. Not everyone he's never bent to what everyone thinks that he's supposed to be. He's bent only to that which is real in him and what he needed to teach and be a part of, which is go inside. And so, I mean, I don't have to be everybody's expectation of me. In fact, I just had that happen just pretty recently. I had someone have expectations of me, and I said, you can have them, but I may not live up to your expectation. Your way.
It's true. It's definitely true. One of the things you had said was all hatred is fear. And I thought that was interesting. How is hatred fear when we hate?
Because hatred is separation. And separation automatically is fear and love are the opposite. So when you love, you don't have to fear. Now, that's not the way it runs here. You understand? I mean, people have been abusive to other people. So if you love someone, you're taking a big chance, and you're going to get hurt. And I can't open my heart because I might get, I don't want to happen what happened before. And so unconditional love is the answer, and it's rare. And it comes from fear.
Right, right.
Fear is I'm going to be hurt. I fear I can't love anybody. I can't take a chance. I can't take the risk. If you don't, you're going to be really unhappy. And having clarity, having attraction let's say in a relationship, what if you wrote down all the things that you want in someone else? What about if, Joe Dispenza says this. If you want a partner, write down all of your, the characteristics that partner you want has, and then become it.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's a synergy.
That's right. Become it and attract it. The other thing was we were talking about timelines, past, present, future. Do timelines overlap dimensions, or are timelines in dimensions, or is it different?
Timelines are in dimensions. Dimensions are understanding and consciousness. So dimensions, even though there's layers of it, like fear and separation, and then earth, the third dimension, and then, the fourth dimension, and so on. But the dimensions are understanding and consciousness. They're a way to understand what is expected in that dimension. How does that dimension? What's the familiarity of that dimension? What is the nature of that dimension? The fifth dimension is love.
Right.
The fifth dimension is Christ energy. The fifth dimension is unlimited. The fifth dimension is now. Fifth dimension is a lot of really interesting things that the universe would like us to be in.
Yeah, to be in the now.
Right.
So the Earth is now moving through into a higher dimension collectively. Is that right? Collectively, we're all moving
through a photon belt. Yes.
Okay, so it's going through the photon belt heading up. If we want to get into the higher dimensions, is it possible for us to leap into a higher dimension? And will we always be in this kind of conundrum of, if we're physically here, we're going to experience the dimension the planet's in?
You're going to have third dimension moving into high fourth dimension, or I'm not high fourth, but fourth dimension, the unseen. More of the unseen is happening. People are seeing entities more. They're starting to get conscious feelings about different things. They're waking up a little bit or a lot,
right,
and so on. So it has, we can't stop what's happening to the earth. I mean, it's going to happen whether people go into it or they don't.
Right.
So the earth is moving.
Mm-hmm.
And our universe is moving, and the whole universe is moving. It's not just Earth, into a higher level, because we're in the 12th level of it. We're in the 12th time. We've had 12 ages. We're in the 12th age. It just started. So we're in that space where we're going through the photon belt, which is the eye of the needle the Bible talks about, and so on. But, dark can't get through that. So eventually people are the mercy that is out trying to get people to understand. And a lot of this negative stuff that's happening is to try to get people to understand there's another choice in this.
Right.
And here's, it's getting people's attention. I mean, we're seeing weather patterns we've never seen before. We're seeing tornadoes that don't just take a path of tornado. It wipes out a whole town.
Right.
We're seeing all kinds of stuff. We're going through all kinds of stuff. And, but that doesn't mean I have to be in it. That doesn't mean I have to, even if I were in a tornado, or even if I were in one of these situations, I have a choice not to be. But if I were in them, I would come out okay. Even if I left the planet, I would still be okay.
Right. I understand
that. If I'm not here, I'm somewhere else. If I'm not here, I'm somewhere else.
Well, my question is...
If anybody's not here, they're somewhere else.
My question is, okay, so being here, living here, breathing here is me being in the third dimension. But is there a way for me to still reside here on this planet and be all in the high fourth?
Well, you're supposed to be. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing, is moving into the fifth and higher dimensions.
Right.
Sixth dimension is, the sixth part of the sixth dimension is, I mean, if you're just going to say it is unity.
Right.
We are all one. And that's what it's trying to do, is get our earth and our universe into the higher dimensions.
And we all contribute to that when we light up and we step into our truth, which I think is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I do too.
So how...
It's the other side.
Definitely. So how do we... My question, and I've been meaning to ask you this since our conversation the other day, is standing right here where we are, when Nancy and I talk about, you and I talk about the truth, getting into your truth, getting heart-centered, taking that breath in, self-awareness.
It's not getting into your truth. It's you becoming one with the truth.
Okay.
There's two different things there.
Okay. Can you explain that?
Getting into your truth. If I'm trying to get into my truth is going to be filtered with, with belief systems. Everybody has their own version of truth.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding and my consciousness of the universal law, which does not change, that always is and always will be, is, let's say, that's truth.
Okay.
And if I'm in line with it, then I've melted with it. I didn't make it. It was created before, was created from the beginning.
I understand. So coming into alignment with it rather than...
it's not that I'm making it true. It's, and I'm practicing it. I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm trying to copy it. I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to do all kinds of different things as far as it's concerned, and become consistent and understand why it's so important. Because the whole fall was about, when 1/3 of all the angels fell, was about universal law and wasn't needed.
Right.
So now we're seeing what it's like when people aren't in it.
Right.
It's an amazing lesson.
This
is why it's so important, is to have universal law, is to understand and take responsibility, as that the good news and merciful thing is that I am one with God, and I can manifest anything. I can create and co-create, and I can have imagination that can make me into something or out of something.
That's right.
We're co-creators, and God is within us. How great is that?
It's really wonderful.
And it's unconditional. It's in everybody. It doesn't matter who did what, or how many mistakes they made, or they're making mistakes, or they've done really bad things, or whatever. It's still there. If they're breathing, it's still there, but they don't see it. They're not merged with it.
Well,
it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that whoever or whatever, they haven't merged with who they really are.
Right.
Yet.
So getting into one's alignment is really just getting into alignment with the universal consciousness, universal law. Yes? Yes. So the other thing...
Well, and a lifestyle that comes from that is peace. There's inside each of us, no matter who, even the people that are you think that don't have this, everybody, every single person has within them a desire for peace.
I agree. My question...
So every single person has that desire, whether people are aware of it or not. So they're not going to be happy until they get closer to fulfilling some of that.
One of the
There's a thirst that comes up. People are not happy. There's a reason why they're not happy. It's not just what's going on, about an event that happened or something else that happened to them. They're unhappy because they're not who they want to be, and they don't even know it.
So true. I love that. I love knowing that. Like, if you're not happy, then you're just not in alignment with your truth. And the simple thing is to, what do you need in order to be aligned with your truth? Go into your heart, go to God, find those belief systems that stand between you and the truth, and evacuate them, because you don't need them anymore.
If it no longer makes sense, and it doesn't fit if it's not making you happy, then go back and take another look and see, or ask, what could be another version, or how do I get out of that belief system?
In the words of Nancy, to do what works.
That's true.
That's true.
There's truth in that.
It is. So there, any questions from any of the individuals who are watching? I know we still have some viewers with us. If there's any questions for Nancy or myself before we end our session, now is the time to ask. One of the questions that we have here is about inner child work. So, what is inner child work and how does it work? And from addressing the points we made earlier about if this thing happened to me when I was a child and I still feel it very strongly, then,
Okay.
how do I do it?
What happens is in the subconscious mind, which is our recorder, it's our tape, it's our computer. Okay, let's call it a computer. It's more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
It's the computer. So if a child were bit by a dog at age 4, it goes into a 4-year-old's way of understanding it and their reactions and belief systems of it.
Mm-hmm.
When they turn 20, unless it's been changed and updated, it's still playing out the 4-year-old.
That's right.
So if I had got hurt, if my feelings got hurt, or something happened when I was, a child, it could be anywhere, can be anywhere as a child. And it was, from a parent, for someone else, from school or a teacher or whoever. The inner child, whoever, when it's not an adult 21 and it's not an adult yet, spiritually as well, if it's not an adult yet, whatever perception they had is going to play in the subconscious the same way as it went in until it gets changed, till it gets updated. So inner child work, one way to do it, I love this method and I've done it many times, is you think if you're sitting, you take some deep breaths and you close your eyes and you imagine your child, and it can be any age. You might start with a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, depending on what the situation is. A 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, who knows? Whatever you get a sense to the situation is. And you go and the child is standing across from you, and you tell the child to come over, and you love it, and you hold it, and you say, "I'm the parent now.
Right.
I keep you safe." And then you might go on to the next child, if it's another time where something happened, as many happenings, events that took that child into that focus. Then you ask them to come over again, and then the child usually is thankful that it doesn't have to be responsible for whatever happened during that time period. And so then of course, you're merging with the high source, to release everybody. That's just one method. But the inner child work is updating the child from whatever its perceptions were at that time period. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, I heard a noise. Anyway, that you update the subconscious and you update the inner child to a different level that can take care of it now than what it could take, different than what it could do when it was a child.
So updating the child to answer the
question. You want to update the child where it doesn't have to not understand how to handle it. You either take over the handling of it as an adult, who you are now, or you have the child update, and there's different methods to do that. It's updated, it's safe now. The idea is for it to be loved, adored, and appreciated now by you. That's part of the self-love.
Right. It was very, very insightful technique. I really enjoyed when we used it, when we were taught it, and I've used it. I've recommended it to other people, and it does some very powerful deep healing. Very much appreciated.
There's a branch on. There was a gentleman who came up with that method that I think his name was Bradshaw. And anyway, he came up with that method, especially working with alcoholic children that were raised by alcoholics, and I'm talking about the disease of alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, things happened, during that time period. He came up with that method. I think it's very, very good method.
I think it's fantastic. It's every person that I've recommended it to, it worked amazing results for them.
I know I've always seen it work. I have
Always.
yet, I hope I never do see it not work. But
Me too.
when I've used it, I've always seen it work.
And Lucy says, Nancy, how do we go within? And just interject very quickly, we do have
the easiest way to go within, Lucy, is to breathe, pay attention to your breath, and just take deep breaths. Like where you're sitting, come up through your breath, bring your breath up to the nose area, then out through the mouth, and just breathe. Breathe, I think, is the fastest way. You can do like you can focus on something and up and close and up, up, open and close your eyes until you just feel like they want to close. You can do. There's so many different methods, but to me, the fastest, the easiest is breath.
We did create a podcast, I believe it's number 2 of the second episode, that was all about going within. If you want to see the second episode, it's in our YouTube records underneath the Cosmic Tea Hour channel as well. Well, it seems to be our time, and I'm so grateful that all of you, Lucy says, Nancy, I always have trouble with that.
Really? Okay, let me just get a sense to that. She has a trouble with breath. Doesn't she breathe anyway?
She says, how long do we do it for?
As long as she wants. If she doesn't want to do it a long time, she doesn't have to. But as far as relaxation, usually one of the things she can do is think of the breath circulate, like being circled. Like the inhale's half of a circle, the exhale's the other half. She might try that.
That's a good technique. Also, too, with the idea of going within, are you going within for peace? Are you going within for relaxation? Are you going within to communicate, to commune? Maybe you have an idea about what going within means.
Whatever she does to go in is going to do something nice. Even if it's just for a few minutes, even if it's 1 or 2 breaths.
Yeah.
The fact that she goes inside, she might be expecting to have like the mind stop, be quiet and not be hit with a lot of chatter and things like that. That will come. The more she does it, the more success she'll find that she has it. And if it's bothering her, then she may be afraid of that feeling of, what's going to happen. Maybe surrender. She had an experience like a nightmare or some other kind of experience when dreaming or something like that. And that's why I suggest that she go in, and if she only does 1 or 2 breaths and pays attention to it, then that's been successful. And then the next time, try 3 breaths, to where she feels safe.
She said she's going within to get answers, but she doesn't seem to get any answers when she goes within.
Then tell her that, or I will tell her, I guess she's on. The idea is to not have an expectation. If you get an idea of what your questions are, and then it may, because you go in, you will get the answers, but you may not get them while you're inside. And if you think, I didn't get anything, nothing is happening. I think I mentioned to you what happened to me a couple weeks ago or something. I went in, and I'm used to seeing light or this or that. It was dead. It was just blank. Nothing happened. So I'm sitting there in my mind going, wow, nothing's happening. And which is what I don't want her to do. And I didn't want to do it either. And then I heard this voice that said, Nancy, do you think that the void that is the place of creation of every single thing is nothing? And you were lucky enough to visit the void where all manifestation takes place? Was that really nothing? Of course, you know my reaction to that. Whoa! But she's doing more than what, Lucy, you're doing more than what you think you are. I wouldn't give up on it. You can, there's so many different methods to meditation. There's so many good meditations on YouTube and stuff that you can follow and get used to it. But if you ask me, the fastest, easiest would be to breathe. And if you're trying to get answers, oh, I know, I've got one for you. I've got one. Do we have time?
We have time. We have plenty of time.
I've got one. When you go in, you breathe. And Teresa, this is going to be good for you too.
Mm-hmm.
When you breathe, and you're breathing, and you just listen to your breath a little bit, and you can keep your eyes open if you want to, because if you pay attention to your breath, you're still going inside, whether your eyes are open or they're closed. It's just easier sometimes with them closed. Imagine an old-fashioned, if you figure out what your questions are, imagine an old-fashioned telephone, like the old days. Maybe this person is too young to even know what they were like, but the old-fashioned telephone, right?
The rotary
so
phone?
You're asking the questions, your questions. And when the phone, you're going to listen for the phone to ring. You're going to listen for the phone to ring. And when the phone rings, you're going to pick it up and you will hear answers.
That's fun.
Isn't that neat?
That is fun. I'm going to try it. Oh, that reminds me too. I don't know if anybody from our last episode, well, anyone who's here watching, tried anything with the resurrection angels. I'm so curious about it. I have tried it. I feel like I've seen results, but nothing that was like the big thing.
Well, if you're using the word try, you didn't do it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, I think this is a wording thing where it's like I prayed. So maybe I should not have said I tried.
If you use the word try, because you used it, I didn't.
Right.
If you used it, this is for anybody.
Okay.
If you're trying, that means you're not really sold on it.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand?
I do. So let me just.
That means you're experimenting with it, but you don't. You're testing it.
Okay.
There's a difference between testing. If you got tested by one of your students or somebody, and they tested you to see if you had any knowledge or anything that they were trying to do, testing the resurrection angels that sit there and do all this incredible stuff is probably not going to get you quite as far along as you want, as if you believed in them, or if you understood that the chances are that's their job, that's what they do, and that's possible. But that's why I suggested that you use violet light to begin with to break any blocks.
Is that just visualizing violet light? And then?
First, you use violet light to release any blocks that you might have, whatever the resurrection angels are going to do for you.
So is that, okay, but the practice of that, we meditate and we visualize violet light?
Yes, because you want the blocks, you want the testing or the blocks or whatever you want to call it, whatever you did. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever happened there, if you didn't see some results to it, either it's still going to happen or you didn't believe in it enough that you were blocked.
Denise says, I did it. It worked. Nancy told us and I believed her.
I'm glad it worked.
Yes. Lucy says, wow, I like the rotary phone thing. And Denise says, I remember the old rotary phones. Now,
isn't it? I love that. I just love it. I love these tidbits that come in and make things a little more fun and easier.
I agree. And that's something I really love about the way you teach is to make these things easy to understand. And that's like one of the biggest points of feedback that I've gotten from the people who watch our podcast is things that previously seemed very complex. The way you explain it really gives people these aha moments. And then they go, wow, she made that easy. Wow, I really like how she taught this.
Well, you know what? In my mind, I'm going to call it God, source, creator, whatever you want to call it. It made it easy enough for a young child to do and an elderly person to do and anyone in between.
That's true.
So the simplicity of it is always going to be there. All you have to do is try to figure out what the simplicity is and how to verbalize it. So you can all be clear. It's got to be easy. I mean, that's why I suggest breaths. I mean, the child has to breathe anyway, right?
Right.
And once it feels relaxed after its breath, did deep breathing for a bit, and it finds out, oh, that felt good. I like that. They might be more apt to do it again.
Right. I actually have a question for you, Nancy. I hope it's not imposing. When you had polio when you were young, well, not when you were told that you had polio, and you were like, "No, I don't accept that." How did you know that you had that power, or did you just like?
I didn't even think about power. To be honest, I was a very active child. I was very athletic, very active. I had a twin brother, and we were always out playing, and I had his friends, guy friends and girlfriends and everybody, and so on around me. And I was a very active. We had a big field right in front of my house, and so we played kickball. I mean, I was very active, athletically active. To go from that to all of a sudden overnight, I come down with a fever, and then the next day my legs did not work.
Right.
To go from being very active to my legs didn't work. And when I heard the doctor tell my parents, she may never walk again, she's got polio. I didn't even know what polio was. That was at the beginning of polio.
Right.
Before the shots even came out.
Right.
And all I knew, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. All I knew is no. I can't imagine. No, I'm not going to be handicapped. And it doesn't mean that all the people that unfortunately went through the handicapped time during that time period. I just know that in my heart, I went, no, this is not going to happen to me. And now, if more people did that with disease, they probably would have different kinds of results. I just learned at 8 to do that.
Well, that's kind of what stemmed my curiosity was I'm so impressed that you knew to do that. And
I didn't know anything. I just reacted.
Well, the next day you were walking, or the day after?
About 3 days later.
And there was no trace of polio at all?
No.
Amazing. So
it was a miracle. Call it anything. For me, it was a miracle. I mean, from my perspective, I'm sitting there. I didn't know how he did it. It was a natural reaction for me. That's all I can say. I can't take credit for anything other than my reaction was when he said, she may never walk again. All I can do is, the only thing I thought of is no, that's not going to happen to me.
So, okay.
And I'm not saying other people, that say no and they don't have success, or, if a child is sick and so on. Apparently that resonated with my destiny.
Okay.
It also prepared me for the healing work I was going to do the rest of my life, so, I mean, somewhat. So it doesn't mean that's the answer for every single person, or, the people that don't say no and they don't have success, or people don't think of being no aren't supposed to go through something. That's not what I'm saying there. How did I know? I don't know how I knew. All I know is no, no, I'm not doing that. But that's been a lot of my stuff in my life.
Right. And so now flash forward, when you became a healer, like I know you were a hypnotist for a while, healed people through hypnotism, and then healed people through different techniques, or the soul that has experienced the Nancy that has healed so many people. Is it alignment? When you offer healing to people, is it something that their soul agrees with, and that's why it's effective?
Well, they have to agree. If they don't agree, it won't work.
Okay.
I mean, they don't have to agree, but if the person who does all healing, it's just like when I had the COVID and the doctor came in and said, Nancy, I know what you do, and we both know who's going to do the healing here. I can give you this expensive medicine, but we both know who's responsible for the healing. And I said, absolutely, you're right, because I had double pneumonia along with it.
Right.
I healed one lung within the first day, the second day, 3/4 of it, and the third day he came in and said, you did it.
Right.
So it's just a matter of, I don't know, I mean, I don't think anyone I think it's fair for everybody. I think everyone can heal. I think the body knows how to heal. I think the body wants to heal. And it's just learning. That's why I teach it. As you know, I spend a lot of time teaching you guys, It's not just Nancy can do it. It's anyone can do it.
Well, but
you have to know how to do it. I mean, there's a little bit of knowing in it.
Right. You have to believe that it's possible, and then know. So my question, and you and I had started talking about this already. I was getting it. The first instinct in my mind when I got this concussion was, okay, I'm going to pray to God. I'm going to, use Reiki energy. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with having the concussion. And when it didn't work, I was like, oh no, wait a minute, hold on. This is, hello, this is supposed to work.
You did it. You don't have the concussion anymore, right?
No, they say I have PCS, which is post-concussive syndrome, that can last 3 months to a year, because I still have.
Well, it doesn't have to.
I know it doesn't have to. So that was.
But it doesn't have to. In other words, your resurrection angels can take it and remove it. It doesn't have. There's no in the fifth dimension of where healing is actually at, in the fifth dimension.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth dimension doesn't have time. Everything's in the now. So now I'm totally healed. Now I'm totally healed. Now I'm totally healed. Now I'm totally healed. Now I'm totally without any problems. Now I have no, I'm fine. Everything in the fifth dimension is now. It has no time. So if you had an expectation of time, and not just you, I'm just saying anybody that's listening, anyone who has an expectation of time, you're going to be in the lower dimensions.
Right.
Well, that's the only place that's in the third dimensions where time exists.
Well, I called you on this because I said, Nancy, I'm not doing something right. And you said, there's a lesson here. As soon as you learn the lesson, your healing will be instant.
A lot of times that's it. It's whatever it is that we're going through, whatever we need to let go of, becoming aware of why the messenger is, if you have pain, it's a messenger. So the message has come at the time because you've ignored whatever the reason is. You've ignored it all this time. You're still ignoring it, so it has to get your attention. So we have pain as a gift.
Right.
And I remember the first time I heard pain being a gift, I remember my reaction to it. Yeah, right. But then I realized that it is. That's exactly what it is. I remember my first reaction. Yeah, right. Sure. I must have been going through pain at the time.
Right.
So, anyway, but pain is a gift. It's a messenger. So it's something that's hidden in our subconscious that we're reacting to, that the universe wants us to release. So we get pain, in the body part depends on whatever the thing is. If it's in the eyes or the ears, or if you get an earache or something, then it has to do with something you don't want to hear, or something about hearing. Every body part has a reason, and every body part has a meaning.
Okay, what's the brain? Do you know?
What?
The brain?
Thinking too much. Putting everything in, all that chatter. I've said this to you before. Stop thinking.
Yes. For many, many years.
Stop thinking too much.
You're thinking.
Go inside your heart chakra and feel. Tell me. Call me back.
Nancy, blah, 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 blah. You're thinking too much. Meditate on it. Call me back when you get the answer. Okay. What Lucy says, what does the neck symbolize? Isn't the neck
the neck is really interesting because it's halfway between your head and your heart. So there's usually with the neck, we can have more than one, I'm just giving an example, and that is there can be some issue that you have, your head and your heart are at odds with it. In other words, your head says one thing and your heart is saying something else, and you haven't recognized how to bring the compromise to it.
Right. And rigidity is rigidity. Like you have a rigid belief about something, or there's like a rigid disagreement.
Or it could just be something hidden. It could be something we haven't admitted to, or something, but it's some kind of the head and the brain, the head and the heart are not in sync with each other.
That's right. I used to have a lot of neck pain. I really had to learn that lesson, Lucy. You're not
Well,
alone.
the neck pain is really interesting because there's an atlas, and it's like it's bone, and it's like the atlas thing where it moves when it gets out of whack. It sits there and moves and changes. It's like connects. It's like a connection. They connect, the two bones connect to each other, and so when you have a problem like that, it sits there and it hits the nerve. It divides itself, and then it hits the nerve and it hurts.
Yeah.
Well, hurts a lot.
Well, that was one of the big things from having the car accident, was my atlas was shifted all the way over to the left, and it was.
There you go, and it hit the nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hurts. But that also, again, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this, but I think not a lot of people don't necessarily agree. I believe everything starts in thought.
I agree with that. Everything starts metaphysically before it enters into the physical.
So, if I find out the problem, if I find out the thought, then a lot of times it'll speed up the healing.
Right. My other thing too, Nance, before we go, what was it? So we were talking about, so when I started being in your presence, I would cry all the time because Nancy's energy is phenomenal. And I'd be, oh my God, she's so pure. Oh my God, she's so loving. And she just glows. She has this big glow around her that just used to make me cry. And she'd say, why are you crying? I'm like, because she just makes me feel so loved. But there's so many different healings that you have participated in throughout the years. So first I feel your vibration and your energy, and then we sit together, and then I learn how you, Master You, were able to take part in these phenomenal healings for, in a Western world. As soon as you get diagnosed with things that are like, air quotes, to be perceived as terminal diseases, there's usually fear that goes along with that. And when I heard or learned that, we can use energy to get rid of these things, that was wow. That was a big wow. So
I know it's becoming more and more known, and people are starting to understand more and more. I mean, all the time, there's so many good people teaching this, and I think it's becoming much more valued and valuable, to people than it used to be.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing new about any of this.
The
healings have been around forever. I mean, they've been around for the longest.
Well, that's what I learned after I was exposed to it, is like, I was so impressed by it that I was like, oh, I want more of this. And I have since learned people use all these different energetic techniques, whether it's meditation or sound therapy, nutrition, to get rid of things and be done with it. And they don't need half the things that we're told that we need. I'm not saying that those things are bad or that it's not the way for some people, because like with Evie, it was about agreeing. She's going to get the chemo, but the chemo's only going to affect the cancer cells. Like, that was amazing. And then it worked. Like, it's a scary thing to hear you have that many cancer tumors. And then when a month later, they're all gone because it worked, like, phenomenal. Like that, it's just so many stories like that.
The reason it worked was her belief system. First of all, she was really good at accepting hypnosis. Second of all, she had a very logical mind. So her logic mind, when I made the suggestion that I had her mind agree, asked it if it agreed, but when she agreed that the whole idea of taking the cancer or taking the chemo was to kill cancer cells, yes or no? And she felt yes, and she felt it strongly.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's its job, then it will only kill cancer cells. It will not touch any healthy cell. But I couldn't stop just there. I had to then make suggestions that her body knows the healthy cells, and it knows what is healthy and what's not healthy. It will kill the cancer cells, but it will not touch one healthy cell, and it will know the difference between the two. And her logic and reason bought into it.
Do you have others? Well, I know you have other stories, but one that you could share with us, like another story that is in alignment, same similar genre of, like, healing?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Do you have another, or can you share with us another story of how someone came to you with a disease or something that needed to be healed, and then you were able to help them heal it? How did you move the belief system out of the way so that it could be healed?
Well, sometimes you don't need to.
Okay.
They just don't want to suffer. I mean, I don't know, I have a lot of them. I'm trying to think of something that might demonstrate it. I mean, if colds are, let's say, I can't answer too much of this, Teresa, because remember, we just spent years teaching healing, so there's a lot to do it. But anything that, like, colds mean, an inner cry.
Mm-hmm.
The flu and different things, respiratory is my right to breathe. I mean, once you learn, I guess the easiest way for me to answer this is once you learn and understand the meaning of the unbalance. All disease is imbalance. It's a lack of balance. If there's a dynamic, in the healing, there's a dynamic thing where if one organ's not doing its job, another organ will overreact.
Right.
If one cell isn't doing it, it'll make a bunch of cells to try to cover up the imbalance. So everything is balanced. So, but everything has a meaning. And so if you can be a detective enough to understand what the body's trying to tell you and what the meaning is and where the imbalance is, then it gives you you can have a lot of different techniques to balance it out. There's not one, there's a bunch.
A whole bunch. Denise says, Nancy, I have radiation damage. I prayed and put my hands over the damaged part, and it's weird, but it's gotten so much better. But how do I completely heal it? Is there a way?
Don't think of it being dangerous, and don't think of it being radiation. Just let it, that you don't need the radiation being radiation anymore. So dissolve the radiation and go for the healing.
I love you. It's so awesome. I love the things that you share and teach and know. So great. Well, that seems like...
Well, I mean, okay, the reason that I said that, the reason it came so quick, radiation's purpose is to get rid of cancer or get rid of whatever it is.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's done its job. So it doesn't have to keep doing it.
So the body does not have to continue to accept the radiation.
But the reason it keeps on is because we're calling it radiation and it's still there. That means we just programmed it still being there.
Oh, okay. So what do we call it now?
We don't call it anything. We dissolve it.
Okay.
You want it to go into nothing.
Okay. So what the term is, the word choice that you would use is
dissolve. It melts away, it dissolves it. Whatever word she wants to use, that means it disappears.
So is it past tense or is it current tense? So all of my radiation has dissolved.
There is no past. There's only now.
So all my radiation dissolved. Dissolved or dissolved?
I'm so thankful that the results of the radiation is dissolved. Thank you for doing its job, and now thank you for leaving. Thank you for disappearing. She said it's improved. She's already got it going.
Yes, yes.
So, she's already done the hard stuff. She knows that it's gotten better.
That's true.
Now, but her question was, or at least my interpretation of what she was asking is, how can I get it to totally disappear?
That's right.
It's amazing that it disappeared. All of it now has disappeared. Isn't that wonderful?
It's amazing that it's all disappeared and then believing it.
Well, and the belief is it'll be gone.
It all disappeared. I love how all of our viewers stayed with us, and like we ran a half hour over. Nobody left. Everybody's engaged. Everybody's asking side part questions. Like, it's just such a great experience. I love it so much.
I do too, and that's very nice of them to do that.
Yes, I agree. So, if anyone has any more questions, Lucy says it's wonderful. I love it.
Everything is logic and reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. The mercy, if we understand the mercy of the Creator, and how it set everything up to be easy enough for a child to understand, and an adult, or elderly or whoever, I don't like that word, but, whatever, anybody. And it makes sense. I mean, isn't it interesting that Louise Hayes is one book that I would suggest that people, take a look at. And she's gone. She left the planet, but her work was incredible. She linked every single disease with a thought.
What book is that from
And then she
Louise
gave
Hay?
affirmations how to get out of things. She did an incredible job, and she was absolutely accurate. I mean, I think she's totally amazing. You can get her, books, and you can get her stuff on YouTube and anything. She's extremely well known for what she did. But her contribution, then there was another one I had was, this lady, she was talking, this book was written before Louise Hayes, but she was talking about dis-ease. That means you're not at ease with something. Dis-ease. And she went through about different things and was dis-ease, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and how to get rid of it. I mean, there's been so many that have contributed to, helping every single person feel that they can help themselves.
What is the book title that you mentioned from Louise Hayes that talks about the thought linked to the disease?
Oh, I don't know. It's affirmations, or it's one of her first books. I mean, it's not a book; it's a pamphlet. You can actually have like this little pamphlet that you can go in and see. Well, here's what this links to. Here's what that links to. Okay. I don't know. Go look up Louise Hayes. You'll see all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Lucy says, I can listen to Nancy all day. Denise says, me too. Denise says, I told Teresa to come on more. The other day, she asked me if we can come on daily. Okay, so I'll look for that pamphlet, but I think that's very cool. Anybody?
It's not a pamphlet; it's a book, but it's a book. She wrote a lot of books, so you'll look. If you look her up, you'll see one you like.
Okay, so one of the first ones you said. Denise said
that she was just the first one. The first one was just, okay, the eyes mean blah blah, and then she gave affirmations of how to heal the eye. She gave the reason, she linked the disease with the eye or the ear or whatever.
Haley says
she was a forerunner in that, where she really identified the different body parts with whatever the problem was.
Haley said the book is You Can Heal Your Life. You can.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of them. Yeah.
So Nancy, how can people get in touch with you if they want to be read by you or speak to you personally?
Well, you have my email, right?
Can you remind us what the email is?
NANCYNLBARR@AOL.com. I know I'm an ancient person. I still have AOL, but it's because I had so many people that knew it. It's Nancy NL Bar at AOL.
Okay. So
give them my phone number.
Okay. Can you tell them your phone number, please?
I don't want to. You tell them when we're out there.
Okay, you got it. So if anybody is interested, please message me to get Nancy's phone number. Nancy currently lives in Nevada, and we are from the U.S. We are from New York. That's right. Okay, so I'm going to cut it here. Not that we don't have more time, but just, keeping it into some kind of a semblance. And we will create a new topic for you and be on next Wednesday at 9 p.m. And then we love you. Have a wonderful week until we see you again next Wednesday. And thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight and listening to all the wonderful information that's been shared. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Stay well, friends.
Have fun.